Hi. Okay, so I'm kind of nervous. I don't really know where to start. I don't really have a scripted video or anything. I'm just anxious to rip right open into this can of worms that is Spider-Man No Way Home. Yeah, so in the future I will probably be preparing scripts cuz I sound terrible. But let's get on with it. Boy, did this movie frustrate me. Like, absolutely frustrate me. Like, when I was watching the movie, I'd say that it wasn't that bad. I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5. Like, there was an overwhelming, abysmal amount of fan service, which in the moment riled me up, made me feel ecstatic, but then when the ecstasy faded, it just left me it just left me underwhelmed, and not because of the lack of fan service, but because there's really nothing else. It felt like the plot was stringing together the fan service. They had a bare bones plot, and it was just there so that we could see. And I will be venturing into spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen the movie, please go watch that because I need to get into spoilers. This is honestly, it just feels like the whole plot was abysmally constructed. It was like predicated on the idea that Peter Parker is some kind of idiot, and yes, he's a child, but he's a child who we've seen is able to construct devices. He made his own web shooters, and he can do all that, and then now we're supposed to believe that he gets all talk, and I know he's an awkward kid, but like he gets super talkative and he messes up Doctor Strange's spell, which by the way I will get into more later because the way the spell works wasn't developed well and makes no sense. So that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other issue. The spell doesn't make sense. But so you're telling me that this intelligent kid is this kid who's putting the universe at stake because his identity was revealed, because he can't face the consequences. And the consequences of which it doesn't even seem like there are any. The stakes are ridiculously low. It's this whole plot that I thought was gonna veneer into something dark, into something actually like meaningful and thoughtful, and something that could have been explored really well because it's an interesting idea. I mean, vigilantism, they finally actually know that this vigilante is a person, is just a 17-year-old kid. What are they going to do about him now that they have his identity? Are they going to arrest him? But I mean, there are other vigilantes, the Avengers. There's a Sokovia Accord, so does the Sokovia Accords apply to Peter Parker? Why is the FBI on his ass? I genuinely don't understand that. The Mysterio thing is swept under the rug as soon as possible. People keep saying Mysterio's right and whatever, but there's really nothing the plot just died off, like, pretty instantly. It felt kind of irrelevant after the first act. Okay, you're right. You'll say the consequences really are there. I mean, the whole movie is a result of his identity being revealed. But what I'm trying to say is that it feels like his identity being revealed has no actual impact. I mean, he saved one woman who was in MIT admissions, who could have given him, MJ, and Ned, who wanted to give them scholarships. And first of all, so the fact that he might be a terrorist is also kind of swept under the rug. One individual person that he needs, is saved, and then she's like, oh my god, what a hero. And so it's messy, and the whole idea of Peter having to, he just does whatever he wants. He doesn't even have to wear his mask anymore. The entire movie, he barely even wears his mask anymore because everyone knows his identity. And at first, in the first 30 minutes, it was played for laughs. It was the reason we were given Matt Murdock, as you know, Daredevil, a tie-in to the Netflix Marvel series. Interesting, but he never showed up again. This premise of him having to get a lawyer, potentially getting arrested, all just swept under the rug. And I think what would have happened is there would be too many conflicts for them to juggle, with the FBI trying to catch him and the 6 villains trying to kill him. And I understand why they completely dropped the vigilante subplot, but frankly, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. They couldn't have it both ways. If they were gonna introduce these multiversal big villains that we all love and want to see, then they gotta do it in a different context, because in a 2.5-hour movie, which already felt like it was paced long, or paced poorly, it dragged on, it moved sluggishly at certain points. It's just too much to handle in 2.5 hours. So I feel like if they wanted to make something more in the serious territory, if they wanted to go with that, then they could have gone with just Peter facing the consequences of his identity being revealed. But Marvel wants to expand, right? It's this universe, it's this big entity, and they don't care. I'm sorry, I have to say this as a Marvel fan. I watched all the way up to Endgame. I haven't seen Black Widow. I haven't seen Shang-Chi. I've really strayed from Marvel. And no, it's not because I've become a film snob, although maybe. And it's not because Martin Scorsese's comments, which I respectfully have to partly agree. I can't. It's ridiculous. If it feels like they're just trying to reboot the universe. They're trying to add in bigger and bigger stakes at the sacrifice of a story. And while I will say I did appreciate the fan service, like I said, I got all riled up with the rest of the crowd. I started yelling. So I'm not gonna lie to you. It was pretty fun because I did watch all the Spider-Man movies, even the Andrew Garfield ones, which are terrible. It just was too much. It was too much and it was unnecessary. And it feels like Marvel, like I said, it feels like they don't care about the story anymore. It feels like they just want this grand spectacle. And I will say that I've had a problem. I'm just going to veneer into the territory of like humor and stuff right now. I will say that there is a problem with Marvel humor. I've had a big problem with humor in the MCU. I think that as comic book movies, I appreciate their goofiness. I think that there should be humor. I think that it can add levity to serious situations. I don't think that the tonal shifts are necessarily bad, but it's the kind of humor that they do that annoys me, that it's unintelligent humor. It dumbs down. It manipulates the audience. It makes us feel unintelligent. And I'm just looking around and everyone's laughing. Everyone's laughing at these jokes that are ridiculous. One of the jokes is literally Willem Dafoe going, I'm something of a scientist myself. And God, I love that meme. We've all seen that meme. It's been circulating for years now. But seeing that, it had none of the original charm. It felt so forced. A lot of the dialogue felt forced. A lot of the dialogue felt like fan service. Fan service, if you're gonna include it, tie it in well. And this was not tied in well. I think that the fan service in Endgame was less obnoxious. Endgame was not a cinematic masterpiece. It is not a great movie, but it is a great spectacle. It is a great thrill ride. It was so much fun and not this obnoxious, not this pretentious, trying to make what seems like this grand movie with that really, isn't a movie. It's just stuff that we fans wanted to see for the last 10 years, and it didn't really work. It didn't really work. I will say, character interactions were great. The highlight of the movie is the interactions between the three Peter Parkers. I love that. The performances by Tom Holland and Zendaya were at their peak, and they showed a lot of emotional range that felt really complex for a Marvel movie. So I really do appreciate it. It had some of the best acting in the MCU. Of course, I love Jamie Foxx, so seeing Electro was pretty cool. Some of his dialogue was also kind of forced, but I think Jamie Foxx really made it work because he has that charisma. He really nailed the comic book goofiness. Willem Dafoe was a blast. He gave a really creepy performance as the Green Goblin. Once again, which plays off of his performance in The Lighthouse, an independent film, which I know a lot of people have. It's more like in that independent niche with it's a film by A24. A lot of people heard of it. Yeah, and probably watched it. He did, so it really felt eerie. It felt like that. I will say his character was problematic. His character was really problematic. His motivations kept switching, and it felt inconsistent. And I don't think they really did a great job handling his character. But his performance, I have no critiques. I have nothing against his performance because it was really fun. So the performances for the main part were good. Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. I think that Benedict Cumberbatch is a really good actor. I haven't really seen him in anything besides Doctor Strange, so I can't say he's a really good actor, tremendous actor, because I haven't seen him in other media, but he was much better in Doctor Strange, and I feel like in Endgame and in this movie, he was overly serious, and then with the wise-ass quips, and it didn't work. His performance didn't work in this movie for me. The death scene, really the emotional impact was kind of stripped by the fact that it all boils down to Peter Parker's idiocy, Tom Holland's Peter Parker's idiocy, the unbelievability that he would put him and Aunt May in that situation. There's a lot of disbelief going around. And it became a certain point where I couldn't suspend my disbelief anymore. It just felt ridiculous and over the top. And I think what aided that, what really solidified the fact that it felt so fake, is the horrible CGI. Horrible. At some point, Doc Ock was using his mechanical arms, and you could see I think he was grabbing Spider-Man or someone. You could see that the claws that his tentacles weren't exactly touching it. It looked so awkward. It looked so fake. It had this artificial tinge to it, and a lot of the scenes, especially his suits, especially Spider-Man's suits, all four of them, yes, he put on 4 different suits in this movie, and I don't even know why. I don't know what the purpose was. It feels, having all that power, especially given by Tony Stark, I mean, that's a different issue entirely, but it definitely diminished the stakes. But anyway, so the suits looked fake, the tentacles looked fake, and I like what they did in the original Spider-Mans with... It was probably uncomfortable for the actors. I get that. But the actors are there to do a job. Willem Dafoe outright said that his suit was uncomfortable. Fortunately, but he did it. He got a massive paycheck. He was willing to do it. He was willing to go through that discomfort. It's not like it's deadly. It's not like it's gonna kill them to put on actual costumes, even if it causes minor discomfort. But the practical effects, I think we're really missing that, because a lot of these sequences felt like they were taken out of a video game. A lot of the fights, a lot of the battles, even just when Spider-Man was on the freeway trying to save the admissions officer, like it looked terrible. And that's surprising because it's like one of their highest budget movies. It's like on a No Way Home is on a gargantuan scale, and even compared to Endgame, which was, I thought, was gonna leave the biggest cultural impact. No, that was reserved for No Way Home, a far less sentimentally attached ending to a franchise. Not even an ending, but it's a franchise that has far less sentimentality and nostalgia than the 10 years that went into that led up to Endgame. And yeah, it was disappointing. So they really just should have used that money for better practical effects, because the CGI was not looking good. Didn't look good in WandaVision. That was the last show that I watched, unironically. And it didn't get better from there. So that's really sad. But yeah, there were things I liked about the movie. Don't get me wrong, it's not all terrible, and I think, but it did age poorly with me. As I woke up this morning, it did age worse for me. And then there's the ending that felt reminiscent of a Hallmark movie, kind of like, remember the ending for Wonder Woman 84 where it's snowing and Diana is just standing there in the snow and she's waving to someone, something like that, and then everyone's just like, oh, what a dumb ending, it's like a Hallmark movie. And they basically did the same thing here with it's snowing, romantic, and Christmas time, and Peter Parker, who, by the way, basically doesn't exist anymore, or everyone forgot his existence because of the spell, because of Doctor Strange's spell, which they ended up casting anyway, which was supposed to make people forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, not forget about Peter Parker's existence. So that's what I mean when I was talking earlier, that that the spell, I don't think they put too much thought into it. So like, everyone forgot that Peter Parker exists, including his best friends, MJ and Ned. They somehow forgot he exists. They didn't have to forget that they could have forgotten he's Spider-Man, not that he existed. Their relationship would still make sense. Doctor Strange made a point about that before. And then they just went with this memory erase route, which Happy didn't know he existed. No one knew he existed anymore. It was ridiculous. It is the perfect way to reboot the franchise, to continue bringing in these multiversal aspects and provide an ending, a superficial ending that feels like it's, wow, the emotional depth, the profoundness. Wow, I didn't know that Marvel could go in that deep. I didn't know that Marvel could have such a brilliant, a sad ending for once. No, I feel like they did that for shock value. I feel like they did it, and then when they were promoting the film, Spider-Man's like, or Tom Holland's like, you guys are gonna want to bring a box of tissues, and everyone's just like, oh my god, it's so sad. And I feel like it was promoted to be sad, to give this superficial depth that really felt hollow, really didn't feel like it existed. It just feels like it was forced there so that we could recognize the intelligence of the MCU. Because I don't know if you know this, but I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, many directors have been coming out and responding negatively to the MCU. Ridley Scott, who said some other comments that I won't go into that I do think are bizarre, but I will agree with him here. And Martin Scorsese and a bunch of directors have been jumping on board and saying that the MCU is in cinema because the aspects, the stakes, the emotional depth that resides in the movies that they considered cinematic doesn't those aspects can't really be found or aren't as prevalent in Marvel movies. And so that's what they were arguing. And I feel like this was their way of responding to them. Because this isn't just something that's recent. I believe Martin Scorsese published his statement like 3 years ago. So that was probably, they've been working on No Way Home for like the past 2 years. So it could very well be that they're trying to inject these moments, these artificial, hollow moments that seem like something profound, just so that they could be like, see, you're wrong. We do know, we do have emotional depth. We do have the revelations and the stakes that your quote unquote cinema has. And it doesn't work. A lot of the stuff feels forced. So yeah, those are the things I didn't like, as you can see by the fact that this is 21 minutes. Jeez. Okay, I'm going to start wrapping up. There are things I liked. The fan service provided me moments of joy, but I'm looking back and I just feel embarrassed about that because a lot of the jokes didn't land. Anyway, character interactions were good. There was some genuinely good humor. I will say I did laugh. Not tear jerking, but genuinely gripping performances. I really should have prepared a list because this is dragging on a lot longer than I thought it would. And I do not think I will be editing this video. Yeah, you know what? I don't know. Aside from that, I don't think I actually like the movie. I think all of the heart, all of what I did enjoy about the movie wasn't the lackluster direction, or anything like that. It was honestly the performances. The performances kept me grounded. Otherwise, I would have walked out. Especially Andrew Garfield. God, he was really good in the movie. But, oh, and I should have mentioned the score and the cinematography. No. The score just, I don't know. Maybe it's a sensory thing, but it felt manipulative. Okay, it felt extremely manipulative. It felt like any generic action score. I believe Michael Giacchino did the score, and I usually am fond of his scores in, especially with the Spider-Man movies, but, well, the classic theme, his rendition of it, but I don't know. I wasn't too thrilled about this one. And then the cinematography felt like a response to the absolute static and not kinetic cinematography that the camera work and the dull lighting and color grading that they had in the previous movies. And I feel like the color grading is a little better. It's a bit more vibrant here. But the cinematography the camera work at least, felt very flashy, but substanceless. It felt very kinetic, but aimless and unmotivated. In some shots, felt glaringly obvious. Like they were trying to get us to be like, oh my god, Doctor Strange, he's gonna come into this movie. Because they zoomed into a witch Halloween decoration at a store. Yeah. The camera work doesn't really have much thought into it. It just moves, which I guess is good. Choreography requires good choreography, requires camera movement. You don't want to flatten the frame, you don't want to flatten the action, but it just felt more detrimental here than beneficial. Yeah, so I think that's about it. Unfortunately, I don't have too many positives here, and the video is at 25 minutes, and I'm sorry for holding you up so much, and especially the boring layout. I'll get better at it. I will. This is my first video. I have an Instagram channel, and I do reviews on Letterboxd, and I would have posted a review, but A, my laptop's dead, and B, I just have so much pent-up energy. I need to release it through words. So here we go. Hope you enjoyed. Overall recommendation, 2.5 out of 5. Yeah, 2.5 out of 5. Giving it 50%. So, neutral. All right, that's it. Later.